From Unity of Houston, Texas, this is the Awakened Life with Reverend Howard Caesar. Unity is a non-denominational spiritual community providing a positive, practical, and progressive approach to Christianity. Let's join the service in progress now with Reverend Howard Caesar.
Well, you know, there are different perspectives on everything and things that go on in our world and around us. And there is a story or a sharing of a man that had a kind of experience on the highway, and this is how he told it. He said, "This morning on the interstate, I looked over to my left and there was a woman in a brand new Cadillac driving 65 miles per hour with her face up next to her rear view mirror putting on her eyeliner. I looked away for a couple seconds to continue shaving. And when I looked back, she was halfway over in my lane, still working on that makeup. As a man, I don't scare easily, but she scared me so much that I had to put my seatbelt on. And when I did, I dropped my electric shaver, which knocked the donut out of my other hand. In all the confusion of trying to straighten out the car using my knees against the steering wheel, it knocked my cell phone away from my ear, which fell into my coffee, which was between my legs, splashed, and burned my thighs. That darn phone soaked my trousers and disconnected an important call. Ugh, women drivers. I don't mean to pick on guys, but just the issue that sometimes we have different perspectives on many things in life. Sometimes we want to, say, our problems are all related to external to us, and sometimes we're not willing to look at what our reactions are, what it is that's going on inside of us, what it is that is the dynamic in relation to our response, our reaction to all the different things that can happen around us in life. It's not necessarily what happens around us or what happens to us, it's what happens within us that is most important, and that's a big part of life. Here at Unity, we teach very consistently the idea that God is good. The nature of God is good. That there is order to this universe, and that there is a permanency to God's truth. Now, we even say on some Sundays, God is good, and you respond all the time, right? Our dear senior associate, Reverend Michael, he just also gave a midweek service on this very topic, and I know he did beautifully with it. But sometimes our minds will wrestle with this idea of thinking it's all good, because looking outward at the world, there are things that we see that we maybe in our minds certainly think would not necessarily be described as good. And so we really can't give all of the responsibility to God for many of the things that we would describe in the world as less than good, can we not? That basically man, as he is expanding and growing, if you and I, and if humanity itself is living in harmony with the universal laws and principles that are spiritual in nature, the relationship of oneness and the connection that is made basically produces a reality of harmony, peace, coming together in love. When man is separate from that which is his truth and has disconnected, then you will have lower vibrations going on that reflect separation. And that which is in error or untruth, or inaccurate, if you will. And so you have varying vibrations of that and evidences of that in play in the world. But in the ideal, it's all good. That is truth. That is the truth. But we aren't living truth, all of us, at all times, at the level and the depth at which truth exists. All right? And so in this three-dimensional world, there are change is going on. Everything is changing, and there is, in a sense, no permanency. It's in fluctuation. Things are coming and going. Nothing stays the same, and change will frighten us, and it will often cause us to portray anything that is change as being less than good. And so we have to be careful what it is that goes on within us and what we project onto our world and that whole dynamic. Even so, underneath whatever is happening out there, underneath it all, the truth lives. And it is permanent. And it is the one thing that will stabilize a soul, that will steady a soul, that, as Jesus said, if you know it and are in it, will set you free. And so, at times, we are called to be in the world, but not of it. And that means that as we grow in consciousness, we have to, at times, rise above what is happening external to us, that we feel may be a threat to us and our happiness. And so we have to go deeper, if you will. On the unseen level, everything is teeming with good. Creative energies are essentially neutral. It's all in how we filter through them and how we direct those creative energies. We are co-creator with God, and some of what we create is totally independent and separate from the truth of our being and the good that is meant to be. And so we live in a sea of good, actually. And within that sea, with all the different variations of consciousness and oneness and separation and everything in between, there are going to be storms. And so there can be things that can be little things, like a person cutting in front of us on the highway. And, some of us, that's major, not a little thing. And just depending on how we react. And another little thing might be, okay, we're in a hurry and we come up to a train at a railroad crossing and we're late for work or we're late for an appointment or whatever. It bothers us. We have people of all kinds that we encounter, and some are difficult people and pose a challenge for us. There are larger, bigger problems that would maybe be in the realm of a serious health challenge, or it might be a financial loss, or the loss of a loved one, or going through divorce, or having had some kind of an accident, things like that. And sometimes our challenges are lived vicariously. In other words, we're feeling the pain and out of sorts by virtue of a close friend or a loved one going through something. We're feeling it internally as we're trying to hold the truth for them and for ourselves. And the Bible, of course, is full of metaphors that have to do with facing the different kinds of challenges. There's Daniel in the lion's den, and there's David and Goliath, and there's Samson and Delilah, and there's just all kinds. And so every kind of problem is dealt with, really, in the Scriptures. And all of them have remedies. All of them have solutions. All of them have answers. And the answers basically all come together as a message of going deeper. Okay, we're called to go deeper in knowing the truth. There's a truth in every situation that can be known, and in the midst of that, bring a sense of empowerment as opposed to disempowerment, and strength, and these kinds of things. And the key is, can we find a semblance of heaven as we're going through varying degrees of hell? And one of my favorite popes that was on this planet for a time was Pope John Paul II. And he was a scholar, and he was a person I considered bold and courageous, and shared what he had come to know theologically and through his deep prayer life and what have you. And he was the Pope from around 1995 until about 2003. I'm sort of accurate, I think, there. And somewhere around the year 2000, he came out and said and was quoted to say that even heaven and hell are not as much necessarily geographic locations as they are things that go on in this life. He wasn't taking away heavenly realms and all that, but he was saying you can experience hell in this life, and you can get a taste of heaven as well in this life. And there were those in traditional denominations and what have you that really pounced on that and were up in arms about that. because everything is taken so literally. But he was coming from a theological, scholarly place, and there were many scholars that were in agreement with him. And so all I'm saying is that essentially people do go through hell and create their own experience of hell in many instances, and yet heaven is right there with them, because the truth that would see them through always exists. That's something we must know, and that's something we are learning about, because everything in the three-dimensional world will be here today and gone tomorrow. It changes. It is pliable, and it's subject to consciousness. It's a movement from within out. And so we can always calm the storms if enough of us, or individually, we're able to be in the right place in our relationship with what is happening and going on. And so, that being said, you know, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you. And he said the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And so we get that it's not only are there heavenly realms, but there is a state of being that exists and available to you and me here and now. And it's a kingdom. It's the best way he could describe it. You own it. You live in it. It exists. All right? And so it's important to learn and understand and come to know that God is not delivering or handing out our challenges and problems that we encounter, because God is not a punishing God. Now, there are those that believe that he is and teach that, but not around here, okay? Challenges are a part of life because we are in a world, a three-dimensional world, where you have varying levels of consciousness creating all kinds of experiences, all right? And so every difficulty and challenge basically gets a reaction and a response from us. And it's one that is either filled with light or some degree of darkness, energetically, you know. And it is either a feeling of being, you know, connected to the divine, no matter what the happening is, or it may cause a disconnect from who we really are. And somebody else shows up, you know. We move either closer to truth or further away based on fear. And so we're here to be a light and shine our light, or we, in many instances, will hide it beneath whatever the challenge may be that we're facing. So those are things we have to own, and we only can know best within ourselves where we are in relationship to what is in front of us at this time or in any time that we are facing and dealing with. And so really it's coming to know and understand that basically anything we meet at any time that challenges us is an opportunity to test the waters of what it is that we're living or not living, what we're applying or not applying in terms of what we have learned thus far as a spiritual being. You know, we know it in our heads, but are we applying it? And so things come along, you know, to like arithmetic problem in school. We get that not to shame us, but to apply the principle and learn that there's a principle that gives us an answer. And so life is similar. We're getting problems and challenges, and we have to learn to apply the principle, and we can be a being of light and love and empowerment as a result, because that's who we are. That's who we are, and we forget that, and the outer world pulls us sometimes into being something that we are not. And so always there is something deeper within us. And I like to call it as, you know, in life, many times we make things out to be life and death, but in truth, it's really about life and depth. It's where you are in terms of the depth of the living of the truth. Everything is life and depth. And so there's a wonderful story even, you know, sometimes our problems, we take them on like a deer in the headlights. And there's a story about a guy who had actually a deer in his path. And he tells how it brought to him a awareness of kind of how he was reacting and responding. And let me just kind of share this story with you. In first person, he says, I was driving south on I-5 through the heart of southern Oregon, incredibly beautiful mountain ranges on either side, when I saw a deer bouncing across the median. For the first quarter of a second, I was impressed, but in the next quarter of a second, I realized that this deer and my Honda were headed for the same point on the freeway at the same moment in time. You ever been there? Okay, I was thinking, should I speed up, swerve, what? But I'd heard too many stories of people who, swerving to avoid animals, had ended up as the roadkill themselves. So I was running through my options. There was not a lot of time to evaluate my options. I was going 65 miles per hour. The deer was going at a pretty clip too. So as I got closer, I could see that this was a very large, beautiful creature of nature. And I was in a very small, kind of aluminum-feeling creation. And then it happened. We reached the same point on the freeway in the same moment of time. I'd never been in one of these before, but I guess there should be a crunching sound, antlers, metal, glass shattering, blood, my blood, a deer's blood. We reached that point, and we passed through that point. There was no crunching, no antlers, no blood. I looked up in the rearview mirror and saw these deer feet landing on the freeway behind me. The deer had jumped over the Honda. The car was fine. I was a mess. I pulled over. I was just driving back from having premiered a one-person show called Life and Depth. The theme of the show is this: life is filled with moments, and the more open to them you are, the richer your life becomes. Not easier, but in some incredible, sweet, magnificent way, richer. In that moment on the freeway, I knew that whatever I said or did or thought would be my reply to this incredible moment. I figured I might as well make it conscious, might as well make it intentional. I said out loud in the front of my vehicle on the shoulder of I-5, "Thank you, thank you." Big heart-filled thank you. He continues, "I think the deer illustrates something very important about moments. Not only do they get your attention in some extraordinary way, but they also have something to say to you." What the deer seemed to be saying, to me at least, was, "Okay, Joe, can we speak metaphorically? You're driving down the freeway of life in the Honda of your body, and you see something about to cross your path. And based on your long experience of problem solving and problem not solving, you know within you this is going to be a mess. It's going to be tragedy. It's going to be disaster. You know that." Well, the deer seems to be saying, "Maybe that's true, but then again, as it leaps over my car, maybe it's not true." So you get the lesson in that? Okay? How we get ahead of the game, how we get programmed, how we get conditioned, this is going to be an outcome. It doesn't have to be the outcome. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And we play a role here in terms of our reaction and our response and the energies that are moving through us. You see, whether we're being an additional light or whether we're allowing circumstances or something to darken who we really are. Moments occur that are of life and depth all the time. There are opportunities to step into the depth of who we are as spiritual beings. And so while we're in this life, and while we're on this planet, and while we're in this physical three-dimensional experience, we are given moments, ongoing moments, many moments. But whether or not they are life and death or life and depth really depends on us, becoming more conscious in the moment, consciously asking and seeking and knocking at the door of truth. What is it that I can learn here? What is it that I can apply here that I have come to know? That can capture a richness that is there, available to you in any moment. There can be signs, there can be signals, there can be messages, there can be guidance that come along. Let me tell you a quick story about my mother. My mother, who is no longer with us in physical, but she had an interesting experience when she was around 75 years old. She lived to be 92, and my father had passed on about 7 years prior, so she was living alone in the home that I grew up in. It was a large home on 2 acres of land there, and on 1 acre actually, and then there was another adjoining acre. But anyway, she had developed rheumatoid arthritis when she was in her early 60s. She had difficulty getting around. She had fallen then later and broken a hip. So her mobility was in question. She didn't have a walker. She was still kind of tentative as she motored around. My sister was nearby with her husband, and they kind of looked after her, but they were trying to get her to move on out of that big house. One summer day, she was outside in the front yard, and she bent down to pull a weed out of a flower bed, some flowers my sister had planted because my mother was not able to do any gardening. And somehow she lost her balance and fell there in the front yard. And my mother was not able to get herself up. She knew that about herself. She needed something to pull herself up, a piece of furniture or something. There was nothing around. So she began to drag herself toward the neighbor's yard. And so that was the site. And a car happened to drive by, and the driver saw her and stopped and helped her up, and that was that. Well, she never told me about this. Until 2 or 3 months later, when she called me on the phone. We talked weekly on the phone at least, and she was all excited because she was telling me that she was putting her house up for sale and that she was going to be moving, and that she had found a senior living apartment, and it was all great. And then within the framework of telling me that, she told me this incident that had happened, and that there on the ground, dragging herself, when that happened, she got the message. You know, it's time. It's a pretty obvious message. But she got it. She's a dear woman, dear, dear woman. It was a moment of life and depth for her right there. And she realized she had to let go. She had to release something, you know. And she had been fighting it. And now she was happy about the move that she had made and had listened to the next good that was there for her, and she would go with that flow. So how do you respond to a problem, to a challenge, to a seeming adversity or change? You know, do we fight it, or do we learn from it, or do we think about what is it that I have learned spiritually that I can apply here, that can empower me through it, and what can I connect to that is a truth that will set me free here? What can I see in this that brings life and depth to my life and to this experience? The late Dr. Wayne Dyer, he wrote a book called There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem. One of his many books. I love Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer. And anyway, somewhere around the year 2000, he wrote that book, and he wrote it from his home in Maui, and a few short months after that, he had a heart attack. And he couldn't figure it out. He thought to himself, you know, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I'm not overweight, I exercise every day, I watch what I eat, I meditate daily, I love my work. Heart attacks are for other people. I don't do heart attacks. And so he had the first opportunity to apply what he had written about, that there's a spiritual solution to every problem, Wayne. And so he said that in the first 24 hours he was in shock, then disbelief, then denial. He said he felt sorry for himself. He was scared. He was weepy. And after that, he began to examine what he had written in his book. And he took some steps. And those steps included, he surrendered and turned the problem over to God. He decided to see love everywhere instead of being in fear. He reminded himself that he was an infinite soul housed temporarily in a physical body, that he was more than form. He continuously or consciously emptied his mind from any negativity, just really kind of scanned the inside of him. And he became grateful for all those that were working and praying for his healing and for his good. He stayed connected consciously in mind and heart to God, and to avoid self-indulgence, he began thinking about others in ways that he could bring joy to them. He goes on to tell how he moved through that test, and he was with us for another 15 years. And the dear soul, he did pass on just this past year. But he was a great teacher, and he lived what he taught. And the Course in Miracles speaks to this. Course in Miracles states, it takes great learning to understand that all things, all events, encounters, and circumstances are helpful. They're meant to be helpful. They're not meant to do you in. They're not necessarily life and death. They're life and depth. Is that any relief to anyone? Okay. All right. Often the first move is to do something different externally, but our real first move should always be internal. You know, how is it that we can bring light to a perspective on whatever it is that we are dealing with? And so we can look at everything that we face in this life and all the opportunities, things that may challenge us. Are we able to be in the moment? Are we able to get the message that is there for us in the moment? Are we able to look at what is it that I could apply here that thus far I've learned? Yes, I'll feel my way through the initial feelings that are associated with this. Very human to feel fear and to feel discomfort and disharmony. Yeah, it was just like Dr. Wayne Dyer. He felt them through, and then he got to the business of doing some inner work, you know? That's what we're called to do, to go deep. It's about life and depth. Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. And so true. We're here to examine, but also to love ourselves through and forward and onward. You're all beautiful souls, and life is good, and there is an eternal goodness in you. That is the eternal truth. God bless you all.
Thank you for joining us for today's message. We invite you to be with us again next Sunday. Unity is inclusive, welcoming people of all walks of life in dignity and love. We believe that love, strength, and goodness dwells within you. May we all live in unity with God, humanity, and all of God's creation. And remember, as Reverend Caesar says, life is meant to be good.
Hi, I'm Howard Caesar, Senior Minister at Unity of Houston. And the Christmas season is upon us. And one of the things we do here at Unity of Houston is to celebrate the historical birth of Jesus Christ, but also the birth of the Christ within all of us. And so if you do not have a church home or a place to go to celebrate Christmas Eve candlelighting services, I personally invite you, your family, your friends to come join us for a wonderful experience here at Unity, where we have great music, some of your favorite Christmas songs, a brief inspirational message, and every individual gets to light their own unique candle. And so our services are at 4, 6, and 8 p.m. We hope that you might choose one of them and come join us and light a candle to the world and truly experience the joy and the magic of Christmas.